Hi everyone and welcome to this very special oracle reading. Now today we do have a very specific theme because I asked the cards to reveal to me how the shift of the lunar nodes taking place today, where the nodes of the moon are moving into Gemini and Sagittarius axis, are going to influence our lives, especially from a spiritual perspective. Now here the challenge, which is the child of earth, it represents the south node, represents the past, our past experiences, our past mistakes, and that's why we're invited to embody wisdom and greater diligence to do things differently than the way we did in the past. And Sagittarius has much to do with our life philosophies, with our legal systems, with our inner truth, with our nonlinear logic, with our most elevated thoughts and thought processes. Basically, Sagittarius is when we're trying to discover the great divine mystery, and by doing so, we tap into our philosophies, we tap into the our deepest way of thinking, our deepest, most divine logic, so to speak. And very practically, what Sagittarius represents, well, it's our religion, it's our life view, life philosophy, it is our the legal side of our lives, it is international and long distance travel, international community, legally speaking, our connections to other countries, other cultures, the foreigners. So, why is all of this so important? Why is the South Node in the sign of Sagittarius so important? Well, the child of Earth answers this question because, as you can see, the child is innocent. Yes, on one hand, the child can make mistakes. The child is driven also by instinct, and when instinct doesn't have life experience, well, it can make a couple of bad choices, but it's still innocent, so from every mistake it makes, it learns. And that's why it's so very important, because we're also going to have eclipses and a lot of totally different kind of celestial activity in the sign of Sagittarius. Also, all throughout 2019, Jupiter, the ruling planet of Sagittarius, was also in that part of the sky, and as it made its transit, well, it upgraded it and all of its symbolism, all of its expression in a very profound and very direct manner, and physical reality just reflected each and every time Jupiter moving through its home sign of Sagittarius. Now think of all the new technologies that entered our existence just in 2019. The space travel, the Tesla, the Starlink, or how you call it, the satellite systems, the new propulsion systems, the containment of antimatter, all the huge scientific cosmological discoveries, all of which has everything to do with Sagittarius because it's cosmology, it's quantum physics. So the world actually changed 180 degrees in 2019 regarding our science, regarding cosmology, regarding, for example, the fifth force of nature was also discovered, and that is epic, that is titanic. And it had so much to do with Jupiter and its home sign. So, yes, it represented for all of us great, never seen before, unprecedented sources of knowledge, sources to interpret the physical universe, but at the same time is also, it upgraded us both morally and karmically, because with great knowledge comes great power, but with great power comes big, big, big responsibility. And that sense of responsibility basically transformed what Sagittarius represents for us as a collective to its most innocent expression. And the South Node in that area of the sky is inviting us to preserve the innocence, to preserve the innocence of our philosophies, to preserve the innocence of our massive scientific discoveries. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that we must not use it for do harm. We must not use it to manipulate people. We must not use it to distort the laws and rules of physics. We must use it in a very constructive and in an innocent way to lead us to progress, to lead us to further knowledge, to lead us to something prosperous and not selfish, not greedy. I think greed is a big keyword here, because if there is a devil or if evil exists, well, then that is our greed. It most definitely is our greed in every single perspective. Yes, greed is mostly like linked to material existence, where you just want to have more and more and more and never be satisfied. But when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to scientific discoveries, when it comes to, applying wisdom and knowledge in a very practical manner, all of that is also subject to greed, because it can make curiosity become an obsession. And when it is fueled by obsession, well, then digging deep in the mysteries of the universe is not healthy, and it will definitely serve our demise and not our greatest good. So this basically means that all of us, from every single perspective, have to return to innocence, because that innocence represents that greed no longer has a grip on us. And it makes perfect sense, because if our life philosophies, if our religious views, if what makes us, motivates us and makes us tick spiritually is greed free, well, then every single area of our lives and our earthly existence is going to be so much different. It's going to be so very innocent. And when we're innocent, the universe and every single higher power is going to be treating us as beloved children and not as criminals, not as murderers, not as, mad scientists, because this is the archetype that what we embodied all throughout human history, basically. Because greed always plagued us one way or another, and we always made, the most heinous and horrible acts in the name of greed. And it doesn't matter how we justified it. Right now, in this present moment, we do have the wisdom and the clarity of vision to know that all of our actions were fueled by greed. And what does greed produce? Well, it produces fear of losing, fear of loss, fear of having to let go and detach. So basically, the child of earth is a beautiful symbolism of how all of us are going to evolve because of that South Node in Sagittarius. If we spiritually become our most innocent selves, then the universe is going to treat us like a beloved child, like an offspring, like actually a mirror image of itself. And that is when our mistakes are going to be forgiven. That is when our mistakes are going to be understood as just lack of experience. And each and every time when we wish to correct our mistakes, well, then the universe is going to help us and guide us in the most miraculous, compassionate, loving, and tolerant ways. If a parent would treat its inexperienced but good-willed child to learn, to evolve, to get the taste of life, to gain relevant experiences, and of course to learn responsibility, to embody a sense of duty for whatever you create or for whatever you discover, whatever power you possess, there's also a big responsibility and duty attached to that. So basically, this is what the South Node is going to be doing from a karmic perspective in the next 18 months as it moves through the sign of Sagittarius. Now, the opportunity is the symbol of the North Node, and as I said earlier, the North Node is in the sign of Gemini. And the oracle card that came out was the Explorer of Water, which is really, really significant because, on one hand, strictly astrologically speaking, everyone would say that the North Node in Gemini empowers our mental sphere, it empowers our intellect. But the Explorer of Water is saying that by empowering our intellect, by healing our thought processes, by giving and empowering mind over matter, basically, because that's what the North Node in Gemini is, by giving a huge creative power to our minds, to whatever we think. That is the tool which we can use to shape out a reality. So the Explorer of Water is telling us that if our minds have this divine creative energy attached to it, much more than at any other time, because the North Node is exalted in the sign of Gemini, meaning that it's super powerful, and the North Node is the karmic path which we have to take as a collective and individually as well. Well, then that gives our minds the power to heal ourselves, especially our emotional worlds. Because when the mind is not plagued by doubt, confusion, when it is not influenced by the social filth and the expectation of other people and past traumas and everything that has been programmed into us by education and all the things we have to accomplish because of social rules and social normality. Now, if all of that disappears suddenly, well, then our minds can heal our emotions. Because when a mind is working in our highest good, in our interest, well, then that is a massive, big boost to our emotional worlds, because it gives us the clarity and the goodwill to further develop our emotional intelligence, not just the basic mental intelligence. And when we're emotionally highly intelligent, that means empathy. That means that all of our interhuman connections are gonna be totally different, where we always stand from a place of understanding. We're always try to step into other people's shoes, that we know what they're going through. When we become our most tolerant, our most supportive, our most loving selves. So the Explorer of Water is a really significant card, because the side effect basically of a healed and empowered mental sphere is that our emotions are going to be that much more under our control. But here I don't mean the obsessive control, but I mean where we try to purify it, where we try to project onto other people positive emotions, positive feelings, even a criticism. And when we have to say no, when we have to set boundaries, they're going to be done in a very, non-aggressive, friendly, tolerant manner. We're not just going to be suddenly blocking everyone out in a very violent and intolerant way, but we're going to base our choices on other people's tolerance and understanding, because perhaps in the future, in the next 18 months, that won't be an unwise thing to do, because if everyone simultaneously becomes just a little bit more emotionally intelligent, becomes a little bit more less autistic, because one of the ways I look at our current society, especially how it has been in the last 10 years, while the humankind was an emotionally autistic entity, because we understood each other through mind, ration, this and that logic, but definitely not emotionally. Emotionally, we were rather big jerks to one another, because we almost made like political correctness and how our legal systems have to reflect morality and equality, equity. We almost made a hypocrisy out of this. We took it to extremes, where it was so very obvious to all of us that it was basically a big drag show, if I can use this word, because it was never based on love and tolerance. It was just based on greed. Every single political or racial or whatever correctness was never ever based on love. It was always based on, well, if I'm correct and if I include this in the legislation, well, they cannot sue me, they cannot challenge me, they cannot find any faults, and that means less losses for me. And basically, that's what we did. So the idea and the principle was really good, but the way we applied it, well, it was more sinister, more dark and corrupt like a big hypocrisy than anything. And everyone knew equally that it was never based on love. It was based on fear, fear of not being challenged, fear of not being sued, fear of not having legal problems. But if we change all this and base it on authentic love and tolerance, well, then everything is gonna be totally different without actually having to change anything, because the laws, which, represent political or racial or sexual or whatever fairness, already exist. They already are producing their effects, have already been with us for tens of years, hundreds of years maybe. But if they were based on a false emotion, if they were based on a two-faced principle, really, which on one hand, of course, absolutely is true, it is an elevated moral rule, but if the core of it is just greed and fear, well, then it's not gonna do anything. But when all of that changes inside of us, and when all of us understand the true emotional necessity that we are doing this not out of fear of losing out or being sued or whatever, but rather not to hurt the feelings of other people, to respect them, to treat them with kindness and, tolerance, well, then everything changes because the frequency changes, the emotional charge changes, karma changes, the relation of the universe towards this subject changes, and divine guidance and the divine intelligence can exist even in human law. This is where maybe human law is not going to be that much separate from the divine one, and then that means big good news for all of us. It doesn't matter in which way, but it's still good news because we are going to be that much more supported. Having to respect rules and regulations and the law out of fear is one thing, but respecting it out of love and understanding, now that is when we are inviting our highest selves, our divine sparks, to believe in it. And when we believe in it, well, it actually becomes authentic, it becomes real from every single perspective. So the explorer of water gives us the chance to explore whatever we desire without fear, without shame, without guilt, without the greed. And that basically opens up the whole new set of opportunities and doors for the future for every single living individual, because when outer reality and society is more permissive for you to embody whatever you are interested in and not so much being bullied by legislation, gatekeepers, bureaucracy, ridiculous rules, ridiculous customs and traditions which take away your liberty, well, then life for everyone is gonna feel differently, much more freer, much more empowered. Everyone's gonna be genuinely happy in their lives, and that matters so very much. And that is why this card, ironically, doesn't reflect the air energy, which astrologically is the case, but it rather represents what that air energy does. Well, it moves the waves of the water, driving us forward, provoking evolution, tolerance, and giving us all the chance to embody our true soul level principles and not just make a big hypocrisy out of all of this. Now we get to the resolution, which is basically telling us we are going to experience this spiritually most of all, and what can we expect for this karmic shift of the lunar nodes to influence spirituality. The card is the Elder of Fire. Now, what does this mean? This can speak about various different things. But first of all, it speaks about the power of belief, because basically that is the Sagittarius Gemini axis, because you search for answers in order to reinforce your belief, and after your belief is reinforced, you speak it, manifest it, communicate it, work with it. So when you embody whatever you discover in your Sagittarius mind, so to speak, that will be translated into the Gemini mind, which can make very many practical things with it. It can communicate it with others, it can teach others, it can create shape and form to the belief, and of course, it can just use it in very practical ways because that is the energy of Gemini. This represents like a massive cosmic or celestial power infusion into ancient souls who are gonna have a lot of power in their hands. And this may come as a shock and as a surprise. And you won't even suspect it or know about this or have this expectation. So, one way or another, they're just gonna wake up one day that they're so very powerful and that they're manifesting everything that they, set their intentions on, but not manifesting as it in the present moment, but in a very much more direct and much more palpable manner. So this nodal shift is definitely going to turn ancient souls have incarnated here in this present era. Well, it's gonna turn them into very powerful co-creators of reality, regardless if they know this or even if they're totally ignorant to this fact. They're still gonna manifest. Because what truly matters is who you are in the present moment and what you have inside of you right now, and not that much what you remember or not from previous existences, or even if you know who you are from a big divine perspective. What matters is who you are in the present moment, and if you're aligned with your passions, if you're aligned with your source, with what you love, what you're passionate about, your inner truth, well, that means almost symbolically, of course, unlimited power, and the divine is gonna be working through you with or without your express knowledge. So this means a big power boost for all ancient souls. Why mostly ancient souls, or better, of course, this is gonna be extremely empowering for everyone equally, but more so ancient souls because they hold that divine experience because of their many lifetimes, and that means that their subconscious, that means that the intelligent core of their beings is that much more masterful, experienced. It has the basic spiritual or energetic or cosmic know-how of how things work. Of course, in each and every of their existences, they were portals for the divine, and when they're so very empowered, that's what they're gonna do once again, because that's why they are here in this present incarnation, because most ancient souls might not even need this physical existence, this experience of going through the hardships of life, well, because they already had that maybe several times. Maybe this is even too much for them, but they're here for a very important purpose, so they have to tolerate all the, pain, suffering, injustice of this world just for this very special moment. So basically what I'm saying is, if you're a spiritual person and if you know of yourself that you're an ancient or old soul, well, then expect a lot of power in your hands. Expect a lot of, influence you can have over even physical reality. Now, if you're aligned with the divine, with the source, that's absolutely fantastic, because that means that you cannot go wrong. If you're not, well, then of course you're gonna do whatever you wish or whatever you see best, but make sure that you at least respect the rules of morality. Of course, this is having free will. No one can force you to use this celestial empowerment in a specific way. It is definitely 100% up to you. And that is why the negative expression of this, because there's not just positive ones, there's also negative one, it will lead to massive spiritual warfare between different spiritual people. But the good news is, this isn't the human type where, it's terrorist acts and religions and the churches and all that. No, it is more ethereal, where this spiritual war takes place in the unseen world beyond the veil, because everyone wants to have their will, everyone wants to manifest what is highly important to them, and of course there's going to be contradictory manifestations. And the way the universe works, it won't filter, well, I'm gonna give you your will because you're aligned, and the other one, well, no, I have to censor this. Everyone has a green flag basically to do whatever they want, as long as they, embody the ancient soul that they are, and as long as they embody the power and the know-how from previous existences, they're gonna have what they desire. And if what they desire is contradictory, well, that means the energies will have to just balance themselves out beyond the veil. And that, yes, it will mean a ideological conflict, a spiritual conflict, but that's part of the deal. That is, going towards evolution, because every evolution needs a certain type of competition in order to get a very positive and harmonious end result. Now, on the other hand, the shift of the lunar nodes is also very good news for channelers and those who have a certain type of psychic ability, empathy, or telepathy, because South Node in Sagittarius, well, it will dissolve the borders between our dimension and perhaps more subtle dimensions, sub-dimensions, which is full of conscious energy, and maybe that conscious energy would like to communicate, would like to guide us, would like to offer humanity its own unique perspective, and it will need ambassadors, it will need speakers, communicators, those who can give voice or at least informational charge to it. So if you're one of those people, well, then expect business, expect to be busy, expect your life to be invaded by offers, by opportunities, by other people needing you. Now, from a totally different perspective still, from a scientific point of view, this can represent fantastic and groundbreaking discoveries regarding dark matter and dark energy, the way it appears in cosmology, so it's actual science. And maybe that whatever scientists are going to discover, it's not 100% sure that this discovery is going to be actually physical. It may just be a theory, it may just be like a thesis, but a thesis which is really palpable and supported by scientific evidence. So this might, shift or revolutionize science or the philosophy of science 180 degrees for everyone equally, for humankind. Maybe this is also a totally new paradigm of science, because with what we are going to discover, what our scientists are going to discover, are going to be groundbreaking scientific truth or big cosmological truth that maybe matter and the world of matter and how matter interacts with each other and how dark matter and matter interact, susceptible maybe to consciousness. Maybe consciousness has the energy or the power or the existence of consciousness has a very, very great influence of how matter or dark matter interact with each other. Now, this may be laughable what I'm about to say, but what if the next big scientific discovery that will shock the world is that perhaps consciousness is also a big universal force, a constant, something that ultimately influences all the other rules of physics or quantum physics, all the other forces in the universe. So this could be something really massive and big, which will basically change society, the humankind, and our understanding of the universe, of the cosmos, of how the universe and the divine works. Definitely going to create totally new and revolutionary schools of thought, spiritual practices, spiritual philosophies, spiritual currents, maybe religions. So, long story short, what I'm trying to say here if you are that spiritual, truth-seeking, scientific archetype, well, then all of this is really, really good news for you, because the world is going to change in such a way that whereas in the past, even the distant past, you've been, more or less forced to work in the shadows because the world itself didn't recognize your role, at least not officially. This is when how the world and things are going to change in the future is going to represent you stepping into a totally new dimension of your life story, because all of a sudden, unexpectedly, within a flash, you are going to be more relevant than ever before, and not just relevant for yourself, relevant for other spiritualists, relevant to all those people who believed in it and trusted you and you helped them, but relevant for all of society. And this can be a massive, massive game changer for all of us. Well, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to know more about the astrology of this lunar node shifts, just check out my previous videos, especially the astrological ones, because no matter from which perspective you look at it, astrological, just spiritual, intuitive, scientific, social, economic, financial, legal, it is definitely going to be a major and massive shift of us having to step into our futures, into the next phase of our normality, a massive upgrade of every single area of our lives. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the nice comments. Thank you for all the support. Wish everyone a blessed and safe day. Bye for now.